When you see a clip like Ben Shapiro talking in circles, saying these big words, and you're like, he's actually making sense.
Nigga making.
But in actuality, he's not saying.
Another thing that was morbid, Transitions of Doom. My reaction when I seen the latest Breakfast Club episode. And that's no shade to Charlemagne in particular, because I fuck with Charlemagne.
Shout out
sometimes
Charlemagne
be on his shit sometimes. Sometimes he be making me mad. But we let Ben Shapiro on, and I remember the first time I figured out about it. I don't remember when the episode aired. It was a couple days ago because they were just dropping the clips about it. It made me, I had a morbid reaction because I was like, I seen that he was posted up, taking pictures and everything. Gotta be amicable to a guest. But I'm like, I know it's Ben Shapiro, someone who's been paying attention to this nigga for like a decade. I really wish he wasn't on a black space right now.
That man has doomed a whole entire generation.
Oh,
like literally.
Just by lying. Yeah. I didn't see the clips or anything. I remember you dropped the link to it. And as much as I'm all for the, hey, we got to get every perspective to like, we can't just be like splitting sides and Dems versus this and that. Guys, we have to look at the state of everything.
Fuck your perspective, nigga.
Ben Shapiro don't care about none of you.
I was gonna say my main issue with it is not that we should never hear what the right wing is saying, because they're gonna construct their own arguments and everything.
For sure.
The problem with having a Ben Shapiro and platforming a nigga like him is not in and of itself the platforming, it's the preparation you have to do for the platforming.
Yeah.
So if a nigga like Ben Shapiro can be intelligent on his own, but Ben Shapiro is also a media personality who's been in this shit for over like a decade, and he has a bunch of money behind him. So all they really need to do is just pour money into digging for whatever information he needs to know to come up offhand to manipulate some shit, and then he can just run. And if you have nothing to stop, bro, then I'm looking in the comment section being like, this is exactly why I agree with Ben. Ben did, and you guys aren't ready to have this conversation. They're pointing out how unprepared it seemed like everyone on the Breakfast Club seemed when it came to having the conversation. I'm like, I don't even think they were unprepared. This nigga just has talking points he's rehearsed down pack, and if you don't have every single rabbit hole where he could be misrepresenting, then it's hard to pin him down on anything.
Ben Shapiro been doing this. Ben Shapiro been going to colleges and
he been doing this,
and doing that shit since I was a fucking kid.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing with that is, like you said, there's nothing wrong with having the conversation, but I think a big thing is there's a time and place. And this is not the time to be platforming Ben Shapiro on the Breakfast Club.
And also,
let's be real.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, unless of course you're going to decimate that nigga.
Yeah.
Which we weren't prepared for, it didn't seem like. So I'm going to point an example of how easy it is for the nigga to just move. We might need to pause a little bit through this, because I don't want to watch the full thing. It's a pretty long clip. But I'll let you know when to pause. But yeah, this is a clip where he's talking about Palestine and Israel. And he's Jewish, and he's also like the biggest Israel defender on the planet. So let's get into the clip, because it pissed me off.
You understand why people are upset about what Israel is doing?
I mean, I certainly understand that conflict is incredibly ugly, and when you look at pictures, particularly drone pictures of wrecked areas, then it's very
kids being killed.
I mean, any conflict,
civilians, casual civilians.
Any conflict.
I mean, yes. Although I will say, obviously, that I believe that Israel has been as meticulous as any army in history in terms of its tactics in urban warfare, and the numbers bear this out. And again, I know people who've had their legs blown off going specifically house to house when Israel had complete air superiority. If Israel just didn't care about civilian casualties, they would have leveled the place October 8th.
Can we stop?
And they did not.
What the fuck are we talking about?
I'd have stopped his ass right there. Like, no, we're not talking about all the other wars. No, we're talking about this one in particular.
Just said that Israel has been one of the most meticulous armies in the world when it comes to trying to avoid civilian casualties, because if they really wanted to, they could have just leveled the entire place one day after October 7th. And because they haven't done that, that means that they're not committing a genocide.
It almost... what were you saying?
No, go ahead.
I see a lot of people who be defending Israel with, like, they always do. Like, you notice with Ben, the first thing he basically dodged the whole thing when it came to kids dying. Like, oh no, it's just conflict.
Any conflict.
They really try to minimize this tragedy. Like, kids aren't dying.
There's
always conflict.
They're
and tragedy and war. What are we speaking?
They're so meticulous that AP reporting the other day called into question Israel's attack on Gaza hospital when they killed 5 journalists. I'm going to link this in the description. But it says new evidence shows Israeli army struck a hospital 4 times without warning and used explosive tank shells. This hospital was also, it says the Associated Press, this is from CBC, the Associated Press reporting into an Israeli attack on Gaza Strip hospital last week that killed 22 people, including 5 journalists, raises serious questions about Israel's rationale for these strikes and how they were carried out. Among killed was in the August 25th attack. It happened on August 25th. Was 33-year-old Miriam Daga, who worked for the AP and other news organizations. They said Israeli forces struck a position well known as a journalist gathering point because a military official said they believed a camera on the roof was being used by Hamas to observe troops.
Okay, nigga.
The official cited suspicious behavior and unspecified intelligence. But the only detail given was that there was a towel on the camera and the person with it, which the army interpreted as an effort to avoid identification. The AP gathered new evidence indicating that the camera in question was actually belonged to a Reuters video journalist who routinely covered his equipment with a white cloth to protect it from scorching sun and dust, which is a normal practice in the area. And they bombed the hospital 4 times without warning and killed them. The most meticulous army on the face of planet that's trying to avoid civilian casualties.
Like, despise that one nigga. What was that dude's name? That
Xavier DeRusso, bitch ass.
Bro, I hated that video so much is because like you go there and you say, oh look at all the aid, look at all the aid. They're not first of all, they're not letting the aid go through.
He says that later too. He's like, oh yeah, they're shipping so much aid.
They were waiting.
You mean that they're holding? They're withholding the aid from those people.
The aid that 100 organizations that are supposed to deliver the aid are accusing them of blocking them.
Why are we trying to? The big thing is what he's doing. Why are we trying to rationalize something that isn't rational?
Because that's where he's ideologically aligned, and it's very dangerous because if you don't know enough about this shit and you let the nigga keep talking, you let somebody who's defending a genocide just say the shit. Let's continue. There was a couple more things I wanted to get to before we just move on from him because he makes me sick.
Right, they've been going house to house. They've been moving populations. Obviously, all of this is ugly. There's no such thing as a pretty war, particularly in an urban environment. And could things be done differently, or should they be done differently? In case-by-case situations, I'm sure, yes. I mean, again, war is very ugly. But this sort of large-scale accusations that have been made that Israel doesn't care about civilians or that Israel has been attempting a genocide, that's just factually untrue.
Okay, but the world's leading association of genocide.
I want to pause
Jesus
right here.
Fucking Christ. So it's not like bombing hospitals. This ain't the first time they bombed a hospital.
Holding aid.
Weak ass argument.
Didn't they have like it was a story that came out that like was it 1,600 or like 16,000 babies or some shit like that would have starved to death because they weren't getting aid.
Didn't they led them to like the strip and then they like ended up bombing it?
There's been reports of Israel shooting at people trying to get aid, blocking the aid. You have this where they bombed known journalist points. They're not even allowing independent journalists on the ground in Gaza to document whether or not there's war crimes, the extent to which the genocide is happening, the extent to which the Israeli military doesn't care about civilians because they do this shit and they'd be like, oh, it was a mistake. And sorry, and then Ben Shapiro sits on the fucking thing and be like, well, they could have done, some things could have been done differently for sure. Yeah, there's no such thing as, why are you obfuscating so much?
No, exactly.
Why are you being
Why aren't you actually
stand on the
going
shit?
Into it? Like,
nigga, if you're ideologically aligned with Israel fucking doing what they're doing, then stop. There's no such thing as a bad war. You know, because it looks horrible.
And then let's talk about it. There's no difference in being like, oh yeah, they would have leveled it in October. They're leveling it now.
They're leveling it now.
No difference.
I was gonna say, since when did time clock matter for fucking genocide?
And for
whether
war,
we're talking about he brings up the mention of the definition when it comes to destroying whole or in part an ethnic group or religious group or anything like that. That's very key to the definition of genocide. When does it say that it must be completed in 5 months? When does it say that it must be completed the day after one inciting event? A lot of things could snowball if you understand how time and military and history works, right? It doesn't always start as one thing, but it could start as one thing. Except for the fact that we heard them saying they wanted to do this one thing for years before.
So like they've been saying.
And then there's one more thing that I want to talk about because he talks about the International Association of Genocide Scholars who just came out and finally said that Israel is committing a genocide, and he takes issue with it. And I want to explain this is why you don't let niggas like this on this platform unless you're ready to check them. Go ahead.
The genocide scholars have declared that Israel is committing genocide in Gaza based off the pure definition of
Well, it's not actually. If you read their actual study, it's not based on the quote unquote pure definition of genocide. They don't actually even define genocide in the document, and they basically went out to their membership, but they didn't go out to the entire membership. They went out to a generic membership. It is very easy to join the International Association of Genocide Scholars. In fact, there were several people yesterday who just signed up and were immediately admitted, even though they have no actual background in genocide. The question is not whether some sort of coterie of people who call themselves experts in an issue are quote unquote experts on the issue. The question is whether the definition is met. The definition of genocide is not met in Gaza by any stretch of the imagination. And you can cite to me, a group that I hadn't heard of until 2 seconds ago, and nobody had heard of until 2 seconds ago, that voted in a particular way. That doesn't make a difference definitionally.
Okay.
So basically, he's just trying to like denounce the entire shit.
What
Go ahead.
what Ben Shapiro is, and you're probably going to add on to it, what he is just
A bitch ass nigga.
a good. He is just a decent talker. Because if you see what he was just doing in here, he was running in circles. He was like, "Oh, we have to think about the definition of genocide. You know how easy it is to join the association of that.
The
Just
people,
running in circles, bro.
the people that made this, I don't even know who they are.
So
like, what are we talking
let's
about?
go over what happened. So the International Association, this is what I was going to say. You have to know all this offhandedly, and I only found this out after looking this up because I had no idea what the fuck he's talking about. The International Association for Genocide Scholars is a nonprofit like organization, and I believe they have like around 500 members. And they've been on record calling different historical events genocides before in the past, and they didn't come out and say it about this until just now. And as soon as they came out, Ben Shapiro and Israel defenders immediately try to find anything wrong with what's going on. So what happened was that group sent out a resolution calling it a genocide to their 500 members that they have. 28% of them responded and voted like in their actual thing. And they voted, and of those 28%, 86% of those voted yes to saying like it's a genocide and everything, right? Mind you, and then I went and looked at the criteria for joining the IAGS and whatever the shit they had a problem with. It was just a $30 fee. So then a bunch of people who are pro-Israel started joining the organization and being like, look, anybody can join. And that's how it defeats the credibility. Except for the fact that they, according to the organization, they wanted to make the joining criteria not as stringent because they want to have representation from people who are not just ivory tower like academics.
Right.
But if I'm joining a group, say I paid $30 to join a group and they say occasionally we're going to be voting on certain things or whatever, cool. Unless I know actually what is in the letter of the law that we're actually discussing and I have a background in that thing, I don't think your average random nigga who joined from 4chan trying to make a joke is going to be voting on a resolution about an ongoing like conflict with war crimes unless you know what's happening on the ground.
Right.
And even if I accept that anybody could join this shit and just skew it the way they wanted to, why didn't they do that at any point before just now?
Right.
And let's
This
talk
shit been
about it,
happening.
bro.
The latest iteration of this shit been happening for at least the last 2 years. So why didn't immediately after October 7th, a bunch of Israeli people join and be like, it's not a genocide? Or a bunch of people from the Middle East or a bunch of people from Iran or a bunch of people from Palestine join and be like, it's a genocide now. Why didn't that happen?
Questions
Because it's
to be
almost like this
answered.
organization's been around since the 90s. It was founded in 1994.
So there was no question before.
There was no
question at
before.
all.
hubbub
And
about up until right
I
now.
don't even know who these people are.
So people
I-
were
and I
joining
bet-
yesterday, and that's the reason why, you don't even really matter about the... And if you don't know
Trying to question
about
his
the fact...
credibility.
If you
He's
don't
been
know
in the
about the
game.
fact that this organization has been here, or the fact that, yeah, it could have easy joining criteria, but that didn't seem to be a problem in any of the other world conflicts that were even on Israel's side that they were calling out, was calling like, that's genocidal intent when people in Iran was saying stuff about Israel. It almost is like the organization might be a little objective until it disagrees with you.
Yeah, until it doesn't support your narrative. And I'm
Nah,
gonna be
that's-
so real. If I'm paying $30, nigga, my shit is credible.
Yeah.
I'm paying 30 not cheap, nigga. My shit is credible.
So
bro.
then they shut down their like thing for like people joining everything because a bunch of people, especially after seeing this and after they came out and said it was a genocide, started flooding it, trying to join it to make a point. But that wasn't what was happening beforehand.
Exactly.
And that's not like a criteria to necessarily say that everything that went into that doesn't make sense. And even if you're going to say, 28% of the members voted, have you heard of a presidential election? What do you think is the American
Everybody ain't
turnout in a
voting that.
presidential election? Everybody ain't voting that, but Trump is still sitting in that White House.
Right. Is his presidency in question? It should be.
It's very easy to talk fast and say.
Exactly.
That's why I hate this nigga, because he will literally, when
Just be
unchecked,
yapping,
if
bro.
you didn't know, because I know when that statement came out, someone at the Daily Wire poured however much money. Let's get to the bottom of this right now. And gave him every fucking little talking point he needed to say about to counter why it's not genocide.
Yeah, and the worst part is, like we were saying in the beginning, how can people at the Breakfast Club kind of defend against that when you have someone who's been getting paid and funded since you started?
Yeah, bro.
Been
You
getting
gotta be on your
been
P's
had
and Q's
resources.
with people like that.
It literally is. I'm seeing. I remember I seen another clip. We don't have to continue watching this one, but I seen another clip. We was talking about like pro-life versus pro-choice. I'm like, the argument is so unconvincing. But he just says it confidently and he says it fast. And if you are not as prepared as he is, as a nigga who's made this a career forever, it's easy to get that
You're
clip.
done. Especially just saying big words. And then on top of it, it's really the reaction of the audience that kind of dictates if you win this shit and will believe you, in a sense of, like, you see a lot of older people being convinced by going to YouTube Shorts, seeing all types of things. When you see a clip like Ben Shapiro talking in circles, saying these big words, and you're like, he's actually making sense. But in actuality, he's not saying.
He ain't saying that.
And now you're convincing all these other people, oh, maybe we should put this in court. But that's actually not the case.
Exactly.
That's why you should not put a Ben Shapiro on the Breakfast Club.
Yeah, and that's what I was gonna say.
Anybody that has his type of ideology.
I was gonna say, yeah, like there needs to be an argument made. There can be an argument had about whether or not we should even platform anyone with these ideologies. Come seeing where Jubilee's taking it and everything.
Jesus
like,
Christ, they had black man versus black woman the other day.
If you're going
You're
to,
lying.
I'm dead ass.
did they?
Yes, black man versus black woman. They
Fucking
had that.
CIA operation.
Yeah, exactly.
But like, if you're going to have somebody in those spaces, especially if you're gonna have them in a black space that's kind of like trying to share different thoughts, hear different perspectives, then you better be ready to challenge that bitch wholeheartedly, even if that makes them mad, even if that makes them want to storm out the interview, because that's what the time period is calling for. These niggas just sitting here saying anything. Thank you for watching this long. If you haven't already, subscribe. What is you doing?
What is you doing?
What is you doing? You think we just sitting here doing it for nothing?
You think you're gonna sit here and not
need
shit?
to
Like,
eat.
hear this shit.
Click that I know you're not subscribed. Click it.
Cool.